Hello and welcome to the MySwimPro State of the Company, July 6, 2020. My name is Ksebati. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MySwimPro. And if you recall back on my channel, I shared our first State of the Company for the year back in January. I'll link it in the description below. You can check it out. But today I wanted to give an updated State of the Company because so much has changed in the last 6 months. 4 months ago, 90% of the world's pools were shut down, and that dramatically impacts a business like ours. It impacts a lot of businesses out there. So if you're struggling, I can empathize with you. But we have made a lot of dramatic changes in the last 6 months, so I wanted to take a moment, reflect back, and review what happened in Q1 and Q2 of 2020, project out the future of 2020 for Q3 and Q4 and beyond from a product perspective, branding perspective, and also look at the financials and the impact that we've had. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, whether you're watching it as an investor, prospective team member, or you just stumbled across this video because it's publicly available on the internet. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome to the State of the Company. It is July 6, 2020. If you guys remember, I did the first State of the Company for this year on January 13th, I believe. And the reason why I wanted to do another State of the Company is because a lot has changed in the last 6 months. And so even though we've done a lot of changes, we've done some pivots, there are still a lot of fundamentals that are actually the same. So I figure it's good to sort of break those apart, review what we did in the first half of the year, what we're looking to do in the second half of the year, what's changed, what's stayed the same. And I think adding some regularity to these is probably not a bad thing. So today I'm going to overview, where we're at now, how do we get here, the second half of the year, and then more longer term, how we're thinking about the company, the market, and strategy moving forward. And so the outline for this slide deck that I put together, I'm going to talk about the golden circle, and some of this is going to be repeat from our first State of the Company, but I think it's good to overview it. We're going to do a review from the product perspective, marketing perspective, financials, and then the impact there. And then we're going to look at the second half of the year and then that longer term. So when we talk about the golden circle, and the reason why I love the golden circle is because at its core, it's the why, and it's why do we do what we do. And as much craziness as there is in the world, and even as things change, the center core, the why, really doesn't change at all. So at the top, you have the what and the how. So like what we do and how we do it, we'll have these tweaks, in terms of like the way we interact with the community, the way the app works, what it delivers. Some of that stuff will change, but the why really doesn't change that much at all. And I get asked like all the time, like, oh, Ferris, how have you guys adapted, in the long term? Like, where do you see the company going? And in some regards, we're going to change, things here and there. And we've done a lot of short-term changes. But the fundamentals in the long run of like why we do what we do, none of that's really changed. And so in the long run, a lot of that is unaffected, because we believe that through the intersection of technology and swimming that we can empower our community members, and none of that has changed. And because there's this diversity in skill, geography, all of that, it's our responsibility to help people reach their goals and reach their gold medal moments. And that's why we have a channel for gold medal moments. We start out the all hands every single week sharing 3 gold medal moments. None of that has really changed, but the types of the gold medal moments and the way that we're helping the community and the way that we're moving the business, some of the what and some of the how have started to change a little bit, but the why is pretty much the same. So it's important to keep in mind because the community is there and the community is resilient. So whether or not they can go in a swimming pool or they're doing dry land or they're doing both of them together, the market is there, the people are there, they haven't gone anywhere. And it's our opportunity as a team to bring that value to them. And it's our responsibility to do that. So I have this fun team picture here. And I was actually sharing this with someone and they're like, yeah, if someone saw this, they wouldn't even know what you guys do. It looks like you're like a party company, like you guys just sell Hawaiian necklaces or something. I think actually Adam's you can see the SwimPro logo on the chest. He might give it away, but besides that, we're having a good time. We're doing this together, and it's important to know there's a few team members that are not on this screen. So in the beginning of the year, we welcomed a few new team players. So Taylor joined us in February, global marketing manager, and then Carol and Dan joined not that long after, actually, just within like 5-6 weeks. So we had 3 new team members. So welcome to the team, Taylor, Carol, and Dan. Woo! Give them a round of applause. Welcome to the team. Welcome. Excellent. And so from a few different perspectives, things have changed. So obviously when I review back, the team is a little bit different. Most of the players are still here, but we've added a few new teams members. And then when I look at 2020, I'm going to overview, how do I look at the state of swimming? Like, what is different about the swimming market? How it's going to continue to be different now and in the future? Overview the product, the brand, the impact, and the finances. So when I think about the state of swimming, like, where are we now? If we look back to February and March, this was the headlines. It was pools are closing. Most of the world, it seemed like the world's ending, right? In a few regards. So it was a depressive state, a lot of uncertainty, and it's still not the most optimistic, but things are definitely different now than they were at the end of February and in early March. And because of that, from the competitive side, a lot of competitive things have just been canceled or postponed. The biggest one is the Olympics, obviously, being pushed out. It's funny, if you look at the date, March 12th, so that's when USA Swimming was saying, okay, for the next 30 days, we're not going to host anything or sanction anything. And now it's 4 months later and nothing has been sanctioned. So it gives an idea of like where people thought we would be at and the optimism that was there versus the reality. These other screenshots were actually from just a few days ago. So these are collegiate teams or programs or clinics or things basically being shut down. And it's funny, it's not funny, but it's the reality that people thought 4 months ago in March that this is going to be like a 30-day thing, and then in 3 months we'll be back to normal. And so the other three screenshots are headlines that were from the last week. And so this will, when we look at the state of swimming, this is just going to continue. So it's appropriate for us to have the right expectations of, even though we're not going to swimming competitions ourselves or hosting any of these, it has a snowball effect on the market from not just the competitive level, but all the way through the fitness level. And for us in our community, our members are resilient. So, people are going to be active no matter what. People are going to do dryland training, walking, running, open water. If they have a gym at home, they're going to do that. Basically doing anything to stay active. And these are just some screenshots from our Facebook group and others that, have been shared in the Gold Medal Moments tab. And these are members of our community doing the training programs in the app that we developed very, very quickly. The bottom corner is Mike Brooks, one of our investors. Actually, he built a swimming pool in his backyard. So, people have been creative and ambitious to get back into some kind of physical shape. And I think that's telling because it's not just the community that's resilient, the team is resilient, and overall, that's all positive for us because people are going to engage, and it's our community and it's our job to serve them. So I mentioned our community is resilient, but at the same time, there's still a lot of closure and uncertainty. And I'm going to jump to the fourth bullet point where I'm going to say swimming as we knew it is not coming back. But that doesn't mean swimming isn't coming back. Swimming is coming back in different ways than it was before, but swimming as we knew it is done. And, what does that mean? From the perspective of, our survey that we've sent out 3 of them. So every 6 weeks we send out a survey and 3 things come out. This is our most recent results here, these 3 pie charts. And, we have a lot of questions in that survey, but these 3 actually give us pretty much most of the information that we need to know when it comes to the state of swimming. It's, do you have access to a swimming pool? If you don't have access to a swimming pool, when will you have access to a swimming pool? And if you do have access to a pool, how comfortable are you going to the swimming pool? And so 3 things stand out that we've seen in our community that we need to acknowledge and impact our decision making. And there's a huge amount of diversity and variance in people's access to anything. So that varies not only by country. For example, the United Kingdom, all pools are shut down right now still, and there's no timeline of when they're going to open. Maybe it's in a week, maybe it's in 2 weeks, maybe it's in a month. Even within the United States, big country, very geographically spread out, each state has different policies. And even within the state, like for example where I live, I can go 1 kilometer away and there's a public pool and I have full access to it and I can sit there for 10 hours. And then a kilometer in the opposite direction is a different city, different facility, and it's completely closed in LA Fitness. So even within the same city and state, we have this diversity. And this is something that I mentioned in March, where we're going to start to see some things open up and some things close. But it's important to keep an eye on it because it's not the same scenario for everyone. And because of that, there is all this uncertainty and there's this continued fear and anxiety in the community. And so when I look at the future of swimming, like what does that mean for us, MySwimPro? I baked out 3 different scenarios, and I think I put it in the last slide. We are not in the business of predicting the future. So I'm just going to make that very clear. We're not, the last bullet point here, we're not going to predict the future. But if we can use the data that we have and the industry insights to make smart decisions moving forward, I put together 3 scenarios. The first one is really the best case, where things continue to open, and by next year the Olympics goes on and people pretty much forget that there was a pandemic, and unfortunately a lot of people got sick and died, but life moves on, and that's the best case scenario. More realistically is what I'm building this model, and we'll come back to these 3 scenarios, and I have some charts of what I think our business can look like based on these. But scenario B is basically a shaky 12 months ahead, where pools will continue to open, but then some will close. People are still proceeding cautiously, but some people will just give up on swimming. Some people will leave the sport, go to other sports. The Olympics will happen, but it's sort of going to happen in the backdrop of a lot of other chaos, and the media spotlight that swimming gets is not going to be the same as it was, in 2016 in Rio. And then scenario C, which is sort of the worst case, it's basically just a rough is subjective, but it's just going to be a bad next 18 months. And you could easily say 50% of the world's pools are just always going to be shut down for the next 18 months. And because of that, and because of what currently is going on, the Olympics isn't going to happen. If you were to project out, if the Olympics were to happen later this year, it wouldn't happen. And just because of a lot of things going on with travel and especially with the United States, how crazy our scenario is. So that's the 3 scenarios. And how does that impact the fitness swimmer? I think 5 main things, and these are things to keep in mind from the product perspective, from the marketing perspective. It's really the fact that when people want to get better at swimming, they're going to take now a more holistic approach. So even 20 years ago, when people wanted to get better at swimming at the elite level, it was all about swim as much as possible. If you want to be the best swimmer in the world, you swim more than everyone else in the world. And in the last 10 to 15 years, it's actually changed a lot, and it's become more holistic. And what's happened in the last 3 months, because of limited access to pools, and people are still, they want to do that activity, but they don't have access to a pool. So now dryland, nutrition, sleep, recovery, all of these things start to become much more important. And to take it to an extreme end, because of what's happening, I don't know if you guys have thought about this as much, but people are looking to do something and get better at it without actually doing it. Meaning, people want to get better at swimming without even swimming. So how does that work? What does that mean? Literally, people, especially on the elite level, they want to get better at the thing without actually doing it. And I think this is true in everything outside of swimming as well. And so for us, how do we think creatively and position ourselves as we're going to help this market get better at something? And it's not just going to be done by going back and forth in the pool. It's going to be this holistic approach. So that's how I'm thinking about that first point. And it ties in nicely to the second point, because a lot of people we've spoken with, especially Charlie and I, on these coach consultation calls, people have to book their pool way in advance, and you either have to call in or you use a website. You can't just show up to the pool and hang out for 2 hours like you used to. So because of these restrictions, and this isn't going away, so for the next 18 months you might have to book your pool time, and you might only get 30 minutes. Some of our workouts are written to be 90 minutes. And so people need to be creative, and we need to be creative in accommodating for that. And that's, I believe, in 5 years from now, when we look back, a lot of these things are still going to be true. And they're just going to be accelerated by what's going on right now. Similarly, open water interest is growing, not just because we synced Garmin capability, but because there is a genuine increase in interest in going open water swimming. And similarly, in the reverse direction, because of these travel restrictions, people are obviously not able to travel to compete in a meet or do an open water race. There's a really big market by dollar amount of people who want to travel and do these destination swims, and a lot of them use our app to train for them. I'm a really good example. I've done several of these where you travel to an event and you want to do that. So this market is just being devastated right now because you can't travel for competition. And so whether that's clinics, events, camps, things like that, that's going to play an impact, and people are going to look to other resources to get that type of competitive spirit, entertainment, and things like that. And that ties into the fifth point, which is if going to a master swim workout is annoying, it sucks, it's no longer fun, then people are going to be more considerate of using the MySwimPro app and going for a solo swim. So some of these things actually benefit us, and even if they don't benefit us immediately, we should be thinking about it so that way we're positioned to take advantage of some of these opportunities. Like number 4, for example, we're not going to pivot and become an events company. This would be the worst time to do that. But a lot of people who are looking to do these events, maybe there's things that we can do virtually or through the app or something like that that can satisfy that. So there's a lot of things going on with that. Now, if you guys remember, in the beginning of April and the end of March, I had this on our all hands almost every slide, where I really tried to reemphasize the point that everything that we did up until March is not the same as what we're doing moving forward. So in a way, sort of like starting over and having a fresh perspective on the way that we do everything. And I think we adapted really, really wonderfully to that. So this is actually a slide that I took from the March 30 all hands. I think this was like the second week that Dan joined too. So he's probably jumping into things like, oh my God, this is what's happening. So I presented this 26-week timeline. I called it the marathon because 26 weeks. And, we had a few phases, and, hats off to the team because we've moved through this, in fantastic fashion. So in the very beginning, we put out a really quick update that had the dryland training programs. Actually, before that, we started doing the live workouts. So I was doing those Sunday live workouts. And then we had the app. And then we pivoted to Elite Coach, and we added that. And right now, we're in phase 3 here, where we're looking at the data. And, 20 minutes ago, we were looking at all hands. What is the breakdown between Elite Coach, swimming, and dryland? And then we're going to refine the model from there. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. And we're in phase 3, and we already have a lot of data that indicates where we're at with a lot of that stuff. And then moving into phase 4, which is going to be sort of the fall. And I don't like the name The Last Mile because it's not over. It's just it's a continuing process. But for this sake, we'll call it that. And in the fall, we have the realities of pools reopening, pools closing, different routine, and we're going to have to continue to iterate on that. So when we look at what happened in the product, this was the first version. It's funny, the app doesn't even look like this anymore. So we have the coach tab, which we saw, the dryland training plans and the swim training plans all together. And then like a week or two later, we had, I think, the most fundamental business pivot that we've done. Anytime you change the pricing, the model, the trial duration, that's really significant. So hats off again to the team for executing this so brilliantly without any major hiccups, because anytime you change something so critical like how much you charge and what you actually get when you charge, a lot of things can go wrong, and I think we executed that very, very well. So literally 2 weeks later, we had a new model, and Apple thought it was pretty good. So that's pretty cool that we were featured in the same sentence as TikTok. Who would, TikTok 1 billion monthly active, and then here's MySwimPro doing some cool things in the pandemic. And also, if you look at the middle screen, this is from the App Store, so offers iPad, Apple TV, and Apple Watch apps. So really building the full package. It's not just an app, it's not just the watch, it's everything coming together. So hats off to Adam and Max on the Apple TV. And then, we rolled out analytics earlier in the year as well. We had a lot of bug fixes, a lot more to come. So definitely the product saw a lot of changes, dramatic changes, and also the business model affected as well. And on the brand side, on the marketing side, a couple of things happened, right? So we did host, those virtual events. We had, I did 12 weeks of consecutive live dryland workouts, and then we added another one where Taylor and I actually split, where we did that as well. We hosted the World Swim Gala. Who would have thought worldswimgala.com was available, but we bought it, and worldswimgala.org. And so we hosted that, and we had Rowdy Gaines and Caitlin Sandino come on. That was pretty cool. And we also did these giveaways. We also started to do business development, where we started to drive revenue from different partners, and you can see that sprinkled into the content. These are screenshots from Instagram. So a lot happened on the brand side. And this is a screenshot from our last ambassador meetup. And look at everyone, how happy they are. So a lot of blue, actually, a lot of MySwimPro blue. So that's pretty cool. We added a few ambassadors as well. And then the impact, I think, is most obvious because we share it all the time. But it's important to look back and reflect on it. I'll just read a couple of these. You guys rock, keep up the good stuff. The speed you took dryland training on amazes me. So people really, they recognize that we're there in this journey, in this difficult time, and we're supporting them. People are really inspired by each other, not only in the app, reading the app reviews, but also in the Facebook community group, on social media, across all the different channels. People are really appreciative and they're impacted. People are even posting that, like, I forget who posted this bullet point. Love the drylands. Not only do I feel great, I have gotten in better shape while on quarantine. I don't think that's true for most people. I think most people have gotten out of shape in the quarantine, but we do have members of the community who are actually getting in better shape because our offering is even more compelling than it was before. So just to give a taste of what we're on to, and there's a lot more to go. So how do we get there? How do we get to the end of the year, 2021, and sloping back up in the positive direction? So it's focusing on what we can control. There's a lot of stuff I mentioned that we have no control over. So I want to be very clear. We focus on what we can control. And when we set the company Q3 goals and even Q4, and everyone sets their individual productivity goals, they should really be tied back to one of these. So when we're talking about your individual productivity goals for Q3, how is your goal impacting the weekly active member? How is it impacting the app performance? So that's the conversion rate to a subscription. Stability, is it crashing? The app crashes irregardless of if there's a pandemic or not. So we have full control over some of these things. What does the onboarding experience look like? How are people engaging with our content? What is the watch time of our videos? Maybe certain videos that we produce, the watch time is not as good, or the click-through rate's not going to be good because it's just no longer applicable. But there's other types of content that we produce that we have full control over. What does that look like, and how long are people watching it, and how much are they clicking through it? Partnership revenue, same thing. Maybe we're not getting revenue from some of the companies you would guess our type of company would make money from, but there's other companies that, like we've already started doing, that are interested in getting in front of our audience and looking for partnership opportunities. So these are things that we can control. And of course, the strength of the community. So, even though some of our numbers are going down, it doesn't change the fact that we're still growing as a brand. The Facebook group is getting bigger every day. We're getting new downloads every single day. I mean, literally, like it's almost, we're at a point now where the name is out there, and even if there's no swimming pools, like when the pools around the world were closed, we were still getting 200 to 300 new downloads per day. So we have that momentum, and we can control what happens once they've learned about MySwimPro, or once they've already learned about it. We have full control over what happens next. So these are the things that we can control. And I go back to the golden circle because the why doesn't change at all, but the what we do slightly has changed. So before, it was MySwimPro is this swim training app. It's got great swim training plans and workouts. You can swim with your Apple Watch. It's great. And now MySwimPro has become the platform that helps swimmers improve their performance and health. And that's a holistic approach instead of just, here's some swim workouts. Here's, tell us your dynamic intervals. We're going to adapt this for you. Now it's the platform that's this holistic training experience to help people realize their goals. And so when we look at what's next, this slide is actually the exact same from what it was 6 months ago. And it's focusing on the app performance. So making sure that we're fulfilling our responsibility to deliver that value to our community members, and looking at the data, improving the retention. The only thing I changed about this slide is I changed that second bullet point from existing elite members to existing elite coach. I added the word coach there just because we rebranded it as elite coach rather than just elite. And then the second priority is building the brand that supports helping people get the full experience out of the application and out of the MySwimPro brand. And then finally, driving revenue and diversifying the company's financials through partnerships and things like that. You might be thinking to yourself, well, what's going to be different? So there's three things that are going to be a little bit different now as compared to what I presented 6 months ago. So one of them is my MySwimPro. So we're not like cutting the application at all, but we're we're going to continue to support the product, but we're going to freeze any development and we're going to slow the marketing. So, we've been continuing to market it and we're going to do that, but Taylor right now is the main person who does that. And instead of, posting 2 or 3 times per day and she's spending, 2 hours per week, she's going to scale it back. She's going to be spending 1 to 2 hours per month on MyTriPro and then refocusing that time on MySwimPro in a few other ways. From the development perspective, we're not building anything new. It's like, what is the absolute minimum to make sure that it works and that it keeps functioning for the people who are using it and they're discovering it. And it does serve value. It's a simple application, but we're not looking at cutting it from the App Store. It's not negatively impacting the brand in any way right now, for the most part, as long as it continues to work. And we'll do that through the rest of the year, and we're just not going to focus on it. And we'll reevaluate at the end of the year for 2021. Similarly, for Android's going to take a different focus. Adam mentioned it in the all hands, but instead of, the way it's pretty much worked since the beginning of the company is, we've really focused on iOS. We've built a lot of great stuff there, and then Mike has sort of duplicated what's been working on iOS, and instead now we're going to take a little bit more aggressive approach, focused on increasing revenue as opposed to feature parity. So there will come to a point where something is available on Android that's not available on iOS, for example, that discount code or things like that. So Mike is going to present what that will look like for the whole team from an Android perspective, and they're sort of going to deviate because at the end of the day, we're driving more than 10 times the revenue on iOS as we are on Android, and we want to make sure that we're applying the right focus and the right amount of time on the right projects. So we don't want to drop Android. We just got to make sure that it gets to a profitable point so that it makes sense, because we want to help everyone. And a lot of people in the world, on an order of billions, have an Android phone. It might not be the latest model, but they have an Android phone, and we got to make sure that we're serving that community. And then the third thing that's going to be a little bit different than what we've done, especially in the last 6 months, is taking more of a visionary approach to the product and brand. So I know that sounds really, really fluffy, but I'm going to explain what I mean by visionary approach. So it's not just developing what I have the bullet point. It's not just developing the product infrastructure so that way the app doesn't break as we add new things and it's a more stable app. And it's not just we have great relationships with the industry and we have great marketing content. It really is the vision of MySwimPro and making sure that the product and the marketing tie together to serve that vision. So this is the vision statement of the company. It's to become the leading endurance sports brand in the world. And I underline the most important part: empowering people to reach their personal fitness and performance goals in swimming and triathlon. So that part right there is the vision. It's how do we get people to realize their full potential and actually get better at swimming, improve their fitness, and improve their performance. And when we think about what does the perfect UX look like how does that actually work? And I don't like user, so pretend that's like an M, member experience. What is the perfect member experience? And the member could be the member state. It could be someone who's an existing swimmer or someone who wants to get into swimming, but either way, they need to have some kind of intrinsic or extrinsic motivation to get started. So I have 5 steps, and it could be 7, it could be 3, it could be 21, but I tried to summarize it into 5 steps here. And this should really be a circle. It actually shouldn't be listed like linear like this. It's really a circle. And I think when I overview it, you'll see why it's a circle. But step number 1, and actually before I explain any of these 5 bullet points, the reason why this is so important is because this is the direction I'd like to see the company move towards. Not just from the product, but also from the marketing and building the brand and how those two tie together. It's not just, oh, MySwimPro's got your workouts. Great. That's not the experience. That's only one part of these 5. So step number 1, there's some kind of an epiphany, and I call it the goal epiphany. So either the member, whether they're an existing swimmer or a new swimmer, they realize that they want to lose weight, or they want to do a race, they want to improve their fitness. Maybe they have friends they used to swim with and they swim. Maybe, we've seen one of our ambassadors, she talks about taking control of her life. People want to take control of their life and they need some kind of a push or realization to get to that point. Or maybe in some cases, which is rare, they have a lot of free time and they want to take on a new sport and then new challenge. And so step number 1 is there's this goal epiphany. And that transitions to step number 2, which is, okay, I have this realization, this epiphany moment, and now I'm going to go to Google or the App Store and I'm going to search for what the heck to do because I want to get better. So I go to Google and I type in beginner swim workout or something like that. And we pop up. We already do a pretty solid job of showing up for step number 2. Step number 3 is actually taking action and following a program. So that means signing up for a pool. You found a pool, you went to Google, you found the workout, actually going and doing the workout. Maybe you started the MySwimPro trial. You followed a bunch of swimming accounts on Instagram to get more motivated. Maybe you looked for a master's program. Maybe you hired a personal coach. You did one of those things or many others, and you actually did step 1 of actually taking action. Next comes positive reinforcement, and this is that immediate gratification. So you just completed a workout, and on the MySwimPro app, you see you rock. You get a badge. You get a notification. You post in the MySwimPro group, and someone gives you or maybe you get the email, the automated email from me saying, "Good job. Here's your next thing that you're gonna do." So you get some sort of positive reinforcement, and ideally, you then share that success somewhere, either verbally. You give us 5 stars in the App Store. You post in the Facebook group. You do something, and the reason why this is a circle is because ideally those shared successes inspire the epiphany for someone else. So by them giving us 5-star reviews, by sharing something, then they give someone else the opportunity to start this circle, and it's like a self-fulfilling. It just compounds over time. The reason why this is so important, and I talk about this visionary product and brand development, is because for the app and the marketing, we have the opportunity to be impactful at every single step. And the more we can reduce the friction between each of these, the more successful and the faster the circle will swim. Right now, we have broken points in this circle. Some areas are really good. So for example, you finish the workout and you have a social share screen. You finish the workout, you see you rock. It's amazing, right? That's instant gratification. There's a lot of other areas that we can tighten this up. And so as we move forward and we project in the next 12 months, 18 months, even though we're in the middle of a global pandemic, we have the opportunity to take this 12, 18 months and really refine this experience. So that way it's not, oh, MySwimPro is the workout app. No, MySwimPro is going to help you improve your performance and health. More specifically, it's going to walk you through this circle step by step. But you don't have to think about it. You're not thinking it like no one's thinking step by step, how is this working for me? It happens automatically. And that's the best experience possible, where the member, this person, they basically go from, I'm going to go swimming, or maybe they don't even realize that they need to get back into swimming, and our marketing content shows up in their feed and is timed perfectly, and the messaging aligns with exactly what they're thinking in the feed. And then they feel compelled to download, subscribe, start their journey with us. And I really want us to think about that visionary mindset of, in the long run, what does the perfect experience look like? Because this is not how we've been doing things in the beginning of the year. We did actually the opposite of this in the very beginning, which is necessary. So in March, we decide, crap, we need to make dryland workouts. Great, let's make dryland workouts. Lorenzo, we need 200 videos in the next week. And then boom, we've got dryland training. Excellent, great. So that really is transactional, and it was necessary at that time. And so we had to put in the grind, and everyone was working really hard, and it's great, and it's amazing, and we were able to produce so much. And now that we've kind of laid out this infrastructure, now we can think about it more from a total experience, and we can continue to build off of that and build towards that visionary experience. So that's what I mean by this visionary approach to product and branding, because it's not just 1 + 1. It's app plus marketing equals the total brand experience. There's that synergy effect. If you just have an app, you don't have it. If you only have great marketing, it doesn't work. Because in the future, now and in the future, the brand that owns distribution and attention is the most successful in any category. So this isn't just a swimming thing. This is just fundamental. So for us, what is distribution and attention? It's basically someone's in the app, they're using it, it's great. We have their email, they follow us on social media. There's this industry, people trust the brand. And from a business development perspective, for us to get more partnerships and diversify the revenue and get more awesome ambassadors and things like that, we need to move in this direction where it's not just the app, it's not just marketing, they're connected, building that brand experience. And in the future, if we have people, let's say there's 5 different channels of attention, and we have people in 2 or 3 of those, then in the future, we have the ability to drive revenue and extract that value from a monetization standpoint in a lot of different ways that we're not doing it right now. So whether that's selling, swim products or apparel or additional features that are not included in what we know as the elite coach, that's all possible in 2 or 3 years from now if we have the foundation. And the bigger the foundation, the more attention that we have, the bigger the potential. And we haven't really done very much yet. So as big as those numbers seem, they're attainable because our market penetration still is not actually as big as one might think. So, it's great when the hardcore swimmers recognize MySwimPro, they've downloaded the app, they've decided if it's right for them or not right for them. But there is a lot of potential moving forward that we still haven't really hit yet. And when I see how are we going to get to those massive numbers over the next 5 years, it's not going to happen, especially in the next 18 months. And that was really my goal of, sharing all those, maybe not doom and gloom news, but the reality just to set expectations. It's not going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. But by using the next 12 to 18 months to build this long run, this visionary approach, it'll allow us to do improvements in these 2 categories. So product and marketing. So on the product side, it's improving the conversion rate, retention, internationalizing appropriately. Yes, the app is in a lot of languages, but there's a lot of work to be done in terms of content and the brand in those languages as well. And then on the marketing side, it's increasing the total amount of attention that we have in the market. Basically, just the numbers getting bigger and bigger. And those numbers will be able to get bigger and bigger with a stronger customer acquisition strategy on the paid side. And like I mentioned, we're going to start spending more money from zero on the paid side, and we can definitely accelerate things pretty aggressively once we get that working appropriately. Similarly with partnerships, not from the revenue side, but from the acquisition, being partnered with the right brands that can send traffic to MySwimPro. So that way, this amazing screen right here can be 100 times larger. Because look how happy everyone is. Everyone's smiling. Well, look at Adam with the mermaid. I mean, that's an amazing shot, Adam. I don't know why it's not your profile picture, but we've got some amazing community members, and I'd like to see those numbers 10 times as many. Look at all of our ambassadors. They're so cute. So in summary, we have the right team. We're on the right direction. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together, staying patient, and building towards some of these longer term objectives and goals. And we're in a very strong position to do that. So everyone on the team should be super proud of everything that we've accomplished in the first half of the year, and also excited by all the opportunities that we have in the second half of the year. And so with that, I'd like to conclude the July 6th State of the Company address. But wait, there's one more thing. There's one more thing. I love this. So the pivot was obviously it was a very turbulent time. A lot of different things going on. Some things that we knew we would need to do to be successful, but there were a lot of other things that popped up that we innovated literally on the spot. And so everyone did an outstanding job in being flexible, adapting, and working towards the common goal of the company. And so it's really difficult to pinpoint this person, hats off to them, because literally everyone did an amazing job. So it's tough to be like, oh, this person deserves special credit, or this person literally everyone stepped up and above and beyond. But there was one individual that we'd like to have a little extra recognition. We're gonna call this the pivot MVP. We had Charlie was our MVP for 2019 for the year. So this is maybe a sort of a different version of that. This is the pivot specifically, what happened in those few months. And again, this is really hard because I can call out on every single team member different things that they did that they stepped up above and beyond. But this individual sort of stepped outside of their role. They were doing stuff that is not why we hired them, type of thing. So it's one thing to basically do more work and put in more hours, and I think everyone did that at some level. But this individual was more flexible and literally did things that they have skills for, but they were not the reason why we brought them onto the team. And for that reason, we are awarding the Pivot MVP for 2020 to Taylor. Woo! Woo! Give her a round of applause. So Taylor's not on the call right now. She's on vacation, but she'll see this and be, so no one spoil it. So she's going to see this on the video and be like, oh, hey, that's me. Great. And so she pivoted with the pivot because she's our global marketing manager, but she did a lot of things that kind of fall outside the scope of her role. So for example, everything from writing dryland workouts and the training, helping me with those training plans. She wrote the voiceover, even though I'm the voice. She wrote the voiceover for me to read for all those different, like the 200 exercises. So that doesn't really fit in the global marketing manager role. She also hosted the live workouts with me and filmed a lot of the content. And so she was modeling in those, which everyone else was also modeling in some capacity. So shout out to everyone on that. And definitely engage in the community in a lot of different ways that were not really the way we were doing it before. And the most important element that I want to highlight as to why we're choosing Taylor for this specifically is because she took initiative in projects outside of the scope of her immediate role. So, technically all the stuff that I listed doesn't really fit in her role, but in times of crisis, if you want to call it that, but when we're trying to move really fast and we're trying to innovate, that is the spirit of being in a startup and entrepreneurship. And so taking the initiative to just yeah, I can do that, and being reliable in that regard, even if it's things that are outside of the scope of the role. So shout out to Taylor. She is going to be getting an award, not a paper plate, like a real award that has value, but I'm going to leave it vague because there's a few options that Mike and Adam and I were considering, but we're going to discuss with her when she's back from vacation, and then we'll let everyone know what her prize is, what she gets for being the pivot MVP. Maybe it's gonna be like a trophy with a pivot, I don't know. We'll be creative. There's a few options. We'll discuss with her and we'll figure it out. So shout out to Taylor, awesome job. And now that officially concludes the state of the company. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the 2020 State of the Company mid-year for MySwimPro. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a big like. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in following the journey of building MySwimPro through my vlog here on entrepreneurship, startups, investing, all that good stuff. Really appreciate your time. Thank you again, and we'll see you guys at the next video. Peace.